you get into marriage and say, look, I'm entitled. I married you. So from now on, you're going to support me because I have emotional issues. I have mental issues. Give me what my mom used to give me. It's like you said, you got to be really mindful about relationships, about the other person. And if you think it's beneath you, it's not. It's you getting to learn who a person is. And it's not going to be only applicable on your wife. You will apply it when you have children. Because by the time you have children, you will see this little being evolve into a personality.
I was going to ask you how you deal with arguments.
It's difficult for men to humble themselves, to control themselves, to take that ego, put it aside and actually listen. When you've been the boss for a very long time, you're not used to being quiet. Your opinion is your opinion, and that is it. But I challenge you. The next time there is an argument, give them an opportunity to vent.
Our man here, Rajveer, is very, very single.
Just have to bring that up, didn't you?
What advice would you give him?
One of the biggest fears that, at least personally, I had was, would they have my back? Is this a relationship based on material requirements? The first year was about observance, about acceptance, about respect, and about communicating. This is the situation, but explain to me, where are you coming from? What is it? And what are the challenges? And how can I help you adjust to it? And there are those who come in the relationship and they say they didn't accept it, they need to accept it. And if you go in with that mindset, then guaranteed it's going to take a lot longer to actually settle down and to actually accept each other. Otherwise, unfortunate things can happen.
You're listening to the Men's Forum.
Your guide to being a better man.
Here we talk about everything to do with dealing with the nuances of life as a man.
This is your safe space to finding solutions to any problem you could be facing as a man.
We're your hosts Rajveer and Shalin, and we're sitting down with guests who share their personal experiences and insights, adding depth and new perspectives to our discussions. There has been a rise in relationships and marriages crumbling over the past years. And the question is, why? In this episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Tanvir, who has thrived in his marriage for 15 years. He's here to share his wisdom on how men can not only maintain, but also flourish in their relationships. Tanvir talks to us about the importance of setting a strong foundation before even entering into a marriage or a relationship, and provides insight into everyday practices that can keep a relationship healthy and vibrant. From communication and mutual respect to keeping the romance alive, he'll cover it all. This is an essential listen for anyone who's looking to strengthen their relationship or understand the key elements that contribute to a lasting partnership. This episode offers practical advice that could potentially save and enrich many marriages and relationships. And you can learn how to build your relationship on solid ground and keep it thriving for years to come. Also, I said the word relationship a lot. Let's get into it.
Welcome, Tanvir. Welcome to the Men's Forum podcast.
Thank you.
I'm super glad that you came through. We had a very drunk conversation. We're speaking about marriage and you had so many great things to say. And I was like, you know what, let me get your number and you have to come on board.
No, thank you. It was definitely a good night. I was in the spirit of things and I felt that why not tell the youngsters exactly what my 15 years journey was like and what my learnings were and share it with all of you.
Solid. So we can just start off by, you can introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into your journey of marriage.
So I'm Tanvir Singh, born in Jaipur, but moved to Kenya, 1977. And so I've been here ever since. And Kenya is home. And, it's been a wonderful experience having been here, having worked here. After several years of working, then comes in that pressure that you need to get married, right? Standard. You're married, you're single. Do you have other choices? Is that why you're not getting married? And so eventually I said yes and buckled in. And so when I did get married at that time, in 15 years ago, don't ask me to do the maths. But
209.
Yeah, but I was at a very humble place in my career. And so I met this lady, Nishdeep, and she came from a very well-established family. And so one of my first statements to her, and it was not a question, was, this is what I earn, this is who I am, and this is my lifestyle. do you still accept? And she was like, yeah, definitely. I'm not marrying you for what you have, but who you are and what you have to offer. And so I did stand her up for at least 3 dates until finally, for someone who didn't want to get married, eventually I said yes. And so I've known the family for some time. So it was a semi-arranged marriage, let's put it that way. And you know what? We're happy for it. And things have progressed and life has just gone on an upward tangent. And I have a newfound appreciation about relationships. And that is, she's been a pillar through my downs. And she's been able to support me. And it was not something that I thought would be there and what relationships were about, but it was something that you learned along the way. There are always teething issues, right? We didn't date. We met 3 times over coffee. One night we went out for drinks. And one of her friends, very possessive friends, goes to me. She goes, "Whatever made you loser?" And I was like, Nish, your friend doesn't like me. She goes, "Well, you're not marrying my friend." I was like, okay, fair enough. And so, so she's been a pillar of strength. She's been an anchor. And, I hope I've been the same for her. And it's just been one success after the other. We haven't failed. We've learned. There have been obstacles. And there's a level of tolerance and acceptance and appreciation and patience that has actually helped us with our marriage to continue going as it is and continue blooming as it is.
Before you got into this relationship, were you in any other relationship before that?
Yes, I was in other relationships. Why it didn't work out, the fault was predominantly mine. And, it was an immaturity. It was listening to what society had to say. And it was certain influences from cultural backgrounds or differences, which kind of made me realize that, maybe I am not a decision maker. Maybe someone else should make decisions for me. And you go through, as a man, you go through these cycles that, am I making the right decision? Why am I making the wrong decisions? But at the same time, I'm seeing my friends who actually made decisions and said, this is the person and I'm going to get involved with them. And I think I see a future. And so, eventually I came to a realization that maybe I do need to really make a stance. And the first time I met Nish, we had our conversation. And I was just thinking that, you know what, maybe this is it. This is the person that's going to make sure that I am going to succeed. I have that mental support, right, when times are bad, to help me keep going through things. And because one of the biggest fears that, at least personally, I had was, would they have my back? Is this a relationship based on material requirements? And so at that time, I was barely earning $500 a month. And I was like, wow, okay, you've said yes. And so with time, each and every checkbox was ticked. And I was like, perfect. Now it's about you and me. And I think I'm ready for the next adventure in life. Right? And so we took the big leap and got into it. Yeah.
How long was it from when you met her till you got married? What was the span?
Literally 3 months, bro.
No way.
Yeah.
So someone you've not met at all.
Yeah.
And you agreed to marry her in 3 months, or you?
I come from a school of thought that you can be as risk averse and you've got to keep just checking and checking and checking and checking. But there are times when you just have to climb that mountain when it's in front of you. And I decided to climb the mountain with her. And so 3 months in, and I was like, you know what? She's said everything right. And she's not judging me for what I had. It was for who I am. And that is what makes a successful marriage. It's about that personality. It's not about the ego. It's not about that chip on your shoulder. It's not about the attitude. It's about how modest and humble you can present yourself. And the most difficult thing in a relationship is trying to establish whether are they genuinely being humble, are they genuinely modest? And she was genuinely being modest and humble. She wouldn't flash anything. And I was like, you know what? This is it. I'm ready to start a whole new book in my life, because that's what marriage is. It's not a new chapter in life. It's a whole new book. And so I said, I'm ready to write this book with her.
So I recently got married in November.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So let's say about 9 months or 10 months of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dating, it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
When you're married, it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally agree. It's a whole new book.
Mm-hmm.
But we aren't given the tools of how to be in a marriage in the start.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that's not passed down. Is there something that you did different?
I think, you know what, when it comes to me personally, I've been taught a lot of patience and perseverance, and specifically don't speak unless you need to speak. And so observing, understanding, and really establishing that character in an individual. Because it's very easy to assume that, no, they have a bad attitude. No, they have an ego. But you've got to understand the background, where they come from, right? And so for the first year, I would say, yeah, literally, for the first year, it was all about observation and going with the flow. I've been told I don't have OCD, but I'm a perfectionist. There are certain things that irk me. But I had to swallow all of that needs and whatever it was just to understand who they were, why they were the way they were. And that just helped me understand who she was and why she thought the way she was, why she'd laugh, what made her laugh, what made her angry, what she needed when she needed. And it took, you know what, almost a decade for me to become a mind reader. But the first year was about observance, about acceptance, about respect, and about communicating. And not communicating in the sense that I don't like what you're doing, but so I understand this is the situation, but explain to me, where are you coming from? What is it? And what are the challenges? And how can I help you adjust to it? What I've learned over time is there are various personalities, right? And having seen my friends, having seen multiple relationships, there's always going to be someone who gives something more, and they believe they've always given something more. And you know what? That's a reality, right? But the joy about it is not to think about what have I given? What have I received? Right? Because if you start counting pennies, right, you're going to end up taking stock and saying, hey, listen, my balance sheet doesn't balance. I've given more than I've received, but it's actually just focusing on what you're receiving and that quality of what you're receiving. Because even though at times you will come across individuals who are unable to express themselves, but deep down, there is a bond and there is a connection and there is meaning to it. And so, there were misunderstandings, definitely in the beginning. But let's put it this way. It was like testing a new software, right? It was like, did it work? Did it stick? Did the customer appreciate it, right? And so as you learn how a person responds to who you are, but it also takes the effort for you to accept with grace that, okay, they didn't accept it, but why? And there are those who come in the relationship and they say they didn't accept it, they need to accept it. And if you go in with that mindset, then guaranteed it's going to take a lot longer to actually settle down and to actually accept each other. Otherwise, unfortunate things can happen.
That's great advice. I think a lot of people get into relationships with, and we spoke about this in a previous podcast, this is who I am, take me as I am. And there's a very closed-mindedness and a closed heart to seeking to understand the other person.
Yeah, it's really human nature because it's all about me and myself and my comfort and what I need. I want, let's take the cliche example, I want the toilet seat up, but she wants the toilet seat down. But you've got to also understand that there are other things that come in the mix, right? And if you start counting things like, oh, I forgot to switch off the light, she doesn't clean up after herself, Stuff is just scattered all over the place. The bugger forgets every time I tell him we have a plan for the weekend, and on Friday evening he's like, so what's the plan for tonight? Right? And so there's always that balance where you accept, cool, so you like to leave the toilet seat down. And she's like, yeah, you bloody forget every time I make a plan. And I was like, all right, fair enough. We'll work on it. But it's not even about comparing each other. It's about adopting who they are, but also adapting to what they are and what they like to do. Because I'll tell you one thing is that down the line, either you get used to it or there is a change. And you actually make a subconscious change, which you don't even realize you're doing, that, all right, I'm going to keep the toilet seat down because she might use the washroom after me, or I need to tidy up because she doesn't like cluttered things. But you don't do that thinking that because she likes it that way. It's because you realize and you respect the person and the values that they have, the principles that they have, and you start conforming to that. And I've seen that happen with Nish as well. She knows I like certain things a certain way. I like to articulate things. And so she ensures that that is also met. And so it's taken time, but we've actually slowly come together somewhere in between, right? And touch wood, it's going great.
I agree, because when you adjust and you compromise,
Yeah.
somewhat it's fruitful within the relationship.
Yeah.
And the dynamics just become smoother.
Yeah. No, definitely. Look, there's the term, be the bigger man, right? It definitely had sexist connotations initially, but to be the bigger person now. And not to think of it as you being the bigger person, because that just makes the chip on your shoulder bigger. But it's to actually accept for who they are, understand their actions. And like I said, you can't react on a whim or a behavior. It just makes it, how do you say, it just makes it like unproductive. It's detrimental. And, like my dad once told me, he was like, keep in mind, as a Sikh, all 10 gurus had wives, but the gurus had to deliver the word. But at the same time, they had to maintain their marriage. And do you think that was a problem? I was like, there must have been. He goes, no, there was a support structure and that acceptance for who they were and what they were doing. And at the same time, the gurus also respected their wives because they were doing a great deed to support them and appreciating that. So, there's so many things, there's so many dynamics. It just boggles the mind to try and synthesize it and make it into chapter 1. This is how it's going to be. Chapter 2, this is what's going to be. I have an overview of how it's going to work, but you've got to really be very open-minded. And for some men, it's very difficult. For some women, it's even more difficult. Always remember, girls have always been the princess of their dad. And so what they're looking for is that comfort. And one thing you'll notice about, say, for example, your dad with your sister, or your dad with your wife. Her dad, sorry. Clearly, I'm getting all confused here. But anyway, you'll realize that if you observe that relationship, there is a certain peace to it. And sometimes the best advice you can get is from your father-in-law. It's that open communication and saying, so tell me about your daughter. What is she like? What isn't she like? Don't ask your wife, what is she like? What doesn't she like? Or you can spend the rest of your life, all right, she doesn't like this because you just tested her and realized she didn't like it. But it's the best thing to ask, because that's what she's looking for in you as well. And she assumes that I had that comfort with my dad. And so now this man who's come in to take care of me, to be my pillar of strength, is going to give me the same as my father. But reality is we don't match up, and they will compromise eventually and accept that you actually tried. And there's that need to understand there was an effort made, right, So,
But do you ever stop making that effort?
no, not really. It's been 15 years. I know what irks her. I'm a bit of a masochist, so I do inflict pain on myself by taunting her. But I think it's just me, right? Chipping away slowly. Hey, she never used to watch sci-fi before, and now she's a sci-fi buff with me, and we're like, oh, well done. Decade later, we're talking about Star Wars and Star Trek and all these science fiction movies. But for me, it's also to accept who she is and what she is, and she's a social butterfly. She's very emotional in the sense that she has a lot of attachments, and when she commits, she commits. And so there are times when I really push her buttons, when a joke is taken as a joke and we laugh. But there are times when jokes are just presented and they're like, dude, we're having a conversation. It's not a time to joke. But she's starting to accept the fact that, like, for example, serious situations, some people feel they need to have the game face on. I believe to have a relaxed mind and actually joke about it because it opens up innovative ways to solve a problem. And so when I do joke with her and it's a serious moment, she's like, dude, really? At that moment, you have to step back and give her a space to process it. And she goes, yeah, you know what? It made sense. Not that you're right. It made sense. And then it'll come back to you like, so I think we should do this. And you're like, that's what I said.
So basically break the tension.
Yeah, it's like two buffaloes, right? Once you keep knocking heads until someone falls down. Two things will happen there. Either I'll feel like the winner, and that says, I told you so. That's the worst thing to tell someone, I told you so. Or you back off and say, you know what? I think we need time to process the situation. And let's meet again and let's talk. I'm going to go and sit in front of the TV and you do what you got to do, right? And we'll come back together. And so this brings the point about communication, right? And that open communication to be able to actually say, listen, this is not going anywhere. We will discuss this later and I need time to process it. Now, I'm a very slow processor and I do need my time. Could take a day. But doesn't mean we don't talk. But it just means that the topic is on hold and we will pick it up later on. And that's what happens. We do pick it up and we solve it amicably. There's no need to call Kofi Annan in there and say, hey, yo, we need help.
Or call your in-laws and be like, they need this problem solved. I want to take you back to the start.
Sure.
There was a certain charm that you brought out while convincing her to marry you.
Okay.
Or there was some flirting, or you had to indirectly make her fall for you.
Yes.
Our man here, Rajveer, is very, very single.
Just have to bring that up, didn't you?
What advice would you give him? You know, he's actively looking for viewers who are single and pretty. Hit him up, but
You know, bro. Oh gosh. Be you. And that's what you want someone to look at and appreciate is you, right? Don't need to try and catch fish. They will come to you, right? It's the charisma, your personality, that is the attraction. That is the factor. The more, it's like, it's an old saying, right? The more harder you try to hold sand, it slips through. So the more effort you're trying to attract someone, to hook someone on, it becomes more and more unattractive, right? And so be laissez-faire. And I am who I am. I enjoy going out. I love dancing. I enjoy talking. I love seeing people laugh. Someone out there is going to say, that dude's pretty cool, man. Yeah, he's not making an effort. He's not trying to, what do they call us nowadays? They're not being mafisi.
Mafisi.
Yeah. They're not chasing after every tail. He's being who he is. And that's what shines out. You don't want to attract someone who falls for something that you're not. Yeah. And so now you have to maintain that pretext, because when they realize that you are not what you portrayed, you're asking for trouble. Either you become a liar and try for the rest of your life to maintain that persona, or be who you are. And that's the relationship you want. I mean, that's what I told Nish as well. I said, this is who I am. This is my family. I'm an Orthodox family. I don't go out. I don't hurry. I come from very humble beginnings. But on the other end, this is how you are. And this is what I think you are. And are you sure you are willing to adjust to this? And she goes, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, this is not Bollywood. Right? Ain't working. It might just end up becoming like one of the Bollywood soaps, Gar Gar Ki Kahani kind of situation, evil mother-in-law and difficult wifey. And you're sitting there like, bro, I feel like I'm in between a hammer and an anvil and trying to make a decision, but that's not what you want, right? At the end of the day, it's about you. And that's what you want, is someone who resonates with who you are and what you are. So stop pretending to be the Gucci guy or the guy who likes to joke around just because it's in social setting, but be who you are, and that's what you will attract, right? Someone who resonates with you. Yeah, that's my advice. Be who you are, because if you are genuine, you will find someone who's genuine and appreciates who you are, and that's what will make you fall in love with them.
Agreed. What did you
So
want to say?
I tried lying during my high school relationships. Really, it didn't work out, because you don't remember when you lie. You don't remember what you've said. If you're your true self, you'll always remember who you are.
I feel like I've been my true self for a very long time. I've learned how to, throughout my YouTube journey, actually, there was always this term that was thrown around, authenticity. So I had to learn how to be as authentic as possible. So I've also carried that onto my relationships. I just feel like there's so much toxicity out there that, like, as in, I've been told, dude, you're a playboy. I think you're a playboy. And I'm like, no, just the way you're acting and the way you're doing certain things, like, you just seem like such a playboy. You're like touching upon everything on my heartstrings.
Yeah.
I think you're a playboy and just bullshitting. I'm like, that's who I am. Like, I'm genuinely, okay, I'm a nice guy, but I don't take shit from people.
Fair enough.
I just feel like, so the toxicity, people just make them repel. Because there was a time I met this really amazing girl, and you know her. And like, she was so into it. I was so into it, but everything made sense on paper, even in terms of values, in terms of, how I'm going to take that role of supporting her and all of that. But she just fled. And it's like, why?
But it's also of expectation. Sometimes from one side, people tend to.
I'm curious to know, like, what was the situation when they fled, right? Because it would explain, was it fear? Was it, I can't trust that this person is who they are? Or you were so blunt that they were like, all right, this guy's going to call a spade, and whenever I bullshit, he's going to say, you're bullshitting, and that's about it, right? And some people just can't tolerate that. They want you to sugarcoat it. But I'll tell you, some women do prefer that. And
Sugarcoating. We've actually been talking about diplomacy lately. So maybe that's one of the things. To become more diplomatic.
yeah, like I was once told that I have no brain mouth filter. I say it as I see it. And this is now pre-marriage. And so throughout my career, right, relationships at work was what groomed me, I think, with time to actually get into this marriage. And one of the experiments in the beginning was to say it as it is, right? And my fat, it's a bit sticking out there, but I love it. But she got fixated on it's sticking out that you call me fat. What the? Really? I was like, no, but didn't you hear the rest of it? So continue being genuine. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But trust me, without you knowing, like I said, subconsciously, you will start adjusting and adapting to each other.
How do you stop being misjudged?
It's the circumstances, but it's really the communication, right? You come across as a playboy, right? And they're not able to see the genuine person that you are. The two things are happening. Either it's a disbelief that I actually found a guy who actually is who they are and not everyone else who's trying to be or a wannabe. Or the other is really trying to convince them. And how much effort do you want to put in trying to convince them? You really don't want to.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion, is that you don't need to have to make an effort to convince someone that this is who you are. And so from the beginning, that relationship wasn't meant to happen. They would have trust you. And that's the biggest thing about relationships, is trust. And that whole belief system that I got your back, you got my back, you are who you are, and you've accepted who I am. And it builds that whole relationship and makes it more stronger. And that's the foundation, is just that trust. That moment you built that trust, you're good to go.
What kind of systems do you have in place for yourself? Or actually, let me put this in another way. Do you guys have consistent check-ins with each other on what's this month been like, or what's the past couple of months between us been like, and what have you not liked about me the last few months, and what have you liked about me? Do you guys kind of have that?
It's a very corporate thing to do, but we do it on a daily basis. How's your day been? How are things going? You know, sorry, I didn't get to ask you a question today. I've been really busy, and things are going okay. It's a daily thing, and for men we're okay because, dude, we don't even call our homie for 6 months and we're like, yo, I'm having a barbecue, you want to come over? Like, yeah, sure, man, I'm coming over. But with women is that for some, there's certain insecurities, and those insecurities, the best way to mitigate them is to actually have a talk every day and just getting a sense check. You're okay. Don't wait for a month. Don't wait for 2 months. You're waiting for 3 months, the water's gone over the bridge, right? You just need to make sure that mentally they're in the good space. And how long does it take to ask, how's your day been? Is everything okay? What can I do for you if you've had a bad day? Right? That in itself is a reassurance. You don't need to sense check from there. You can go down the whole, like I said, the corporate route and say, hey, listen, let's have a sit down, right? And let's just talk. How have our 3 months been? Have I been, what do they call it in software development? Retrospective. What's worked, what didn't work? How do we fix what we can fix, right? I personally shy away from that because I think every day is a touch point, and to judge and understand and evaluate what the situation is like. And the fact that you're doing that much, you already know that how they're feeling, how you feel as well is what you're going to express to them. And immediately you're already balancing out any negativity and the need to give positivity. It's a daily thing. And so if you try to make it into a plan or a project, right, that's not what a relationship is. It's fluidity. It's like the blue Nile meeting the red Nile somewhere in Sudan, and somehow they merge and become the one singular Nile. Because if you don't think on a daily basis, you don't ask those questions, it feels like you're disconnected, you don't care, it's just about you. And whenever you express a problem, you're like, yeah, but what about mine? And to avoid that, the best thing to ask on a daily basis when you get together and say, how are you doing, love? How was your day? Oh, your boss was a whatever, right? It's fine. You're doing the best you can. Do you think you can learn something from that? Or If they were wrong, don't worry. You'll prove them right. Prove yourself right, not them right. And so that reassurance doesn't require you to set a schedule and say, hey, let's have our one-on-one meeting now and discuss what my performance was like, because I have my key performance indicators. Did I check them? That's not a relationship, man. That's work. Relationships aren't work. It's fluidity, right?
You mentioned checking in with them and asking them, how their days are going. And one of the things, a complaint that I've heard a lot when a woman is venting, oh, he's so quick to give me advice. So how do you kind of maneuver that in your relationship?
How bad were your relationships?
How bad were my relationships? No, that's stuff that you hear on like TikTok.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaints.
So you're not talking from experience?
No, I'm not talking from experience. No,
bro.
But I was someone who would, when I'm being vented to, it would be like, either I would say, hey, you don't need to cry about this, man up, which is, I think it's horribly wrong now. Horribly wrong.
Wrong approach.
I'm sorry to who I did that to. And or it's like just quick to go to advice mode. Hey, okay, there's this person who's, doing this to you. Why don't you approach it like this and that? Instead of like truly hearing them out, I feel. How do you kind of maneuver that?
It's not about maneuvering. Remember I told you about understanding people and personalities and ego. You don't need to be a mind reader to judge who and what they're like. You'll come across certain personalities where advice comes across as condescending. And it sounds like you're telling them, hey, listen, you were wrong from the beginning, and I told you so. But that's what they're hearing. And so to be able to understand, does she think that way? Is she one to receive advice? And how does she like to receive that advice? And that's for you to craft it out, right? First time, second time, you got to understand that, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm sorry to most of the women, but their sense of insecurity is always tittering on the edge, and it's just one mistake as a man you got to make. And then all of a sudden, it blows out of proportion, right? So the moment you go and start giving advice, for them, their insecurity is that, I knew it. I'm not good enough for him. And so he has to tell me what to do. Well, I'm making this effort to be the best I can for him, right? It's, honestly, men tend to listen more. My advice is actually to listen more and react less. Because after the whole Mahabharata of talks, you will sit there like Arjun and you'll be like, yes, I think maybe if this was what you had done, or did you see it from this perspective? What do you think if you saw it from this angle? It's not about telling them you should have done this. Because for them, it's like you're just reinforcing that they failed, or they were not right, or they were wrong, right? But it's actually helping them think about it. And one of the things women love is that they need to be in charge, and they're making the right decisions at times. But you've got to play that game with them as well. I call it a game, is that you make them think that they're the ones who originated with it, but you guide that thought process, right? And it's how you got to lead it, man. It's very difficult to tell a lady that, hey, listen, I told you to do it this way, or I think you should do it this way, and they'll be like, but you don't know what I'm talking about. You have no idea. I was like, oh, okay. So my role was actually just to listen. They needed to vent. We go open a bottle of beer and say, hey, what's up? Good. How's life? Tough. So right, you get on. She's not your buddy, like your boy. She's not your homie. Her psyche is so different. We think in a 360, two-dimensional way. Women think time, space, and everything in between. And you're like, whoa, dude. How did you go from A and the conclusion was Z? I was like, yo. Right? I was like, okay. Woosah. And so what I've learned is listen. They love it when you listen. They need to vent, right? It's not your job to give them advice. It's your job to give them comfort. Once that whole situation diffuses, that's when you say, did you think about, or how about, or what do you think about this? It's not, I think you should do this. Not definitive. Because women in today's day and age are very independent. It's great to see a lot of hardworking women who are establishing themselves, who have a strong sense of direction. For them, it's you're just invalidating that by telling them, I think you should have done this. It's more like, how do you think we could have done this better? And you help them and navigate them. And, they actually come around and say, I kind of see where you're going with this, but thanks for taking me through this thought process to find a solution to a problem or how we have to deal with each other.
So it's just a simple shift in communication.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I was saying initially, as a leader, and it's something, an epiphany I had when I was doing my master's last year. And one of my modules is about leadership and understanding the types of leaderships there were and the kind of employees you have. And I got home and I was like, oh, dang, dude. I was like, this is what I have to do at home as well, is to actually understand the characteristics of my wife. Not she was my employee. I did, have we beaten the crap out of
people, right?
Yeah. So look, let's put it this way, right? You work in an organization or you're a business owner and you have a team of people. If you don't suss out the strengths and weaknesses, you're not able to build a cohesive team, nor are you able to take advantage of their strengths that supplement you, and you support their weaknesses and help them grow, right? If you're unable to do that at work, you're not going to be able to do that at home, right? Good leaders hire people who are smarter than them. And that is what Jack Ma said. Jack Ma, Alibaba. He said that. He goes, I hired people who were smarter than me. And that was because I knew I had weaknesses, but I would have learned from them. Now, when it comes to a relationship, right, is understanding how do they supplement or become that strength that you were missing. And so talking to them in a certain way, behavioral attributes that or your personification, it's something that you will learn with time as you continue sticking to this relationship. And you say, okay, she doesn't like jokes about this, but she does love to this. She has a weakness in she doesn't know how to cook. But I think I know how to cook. But she wants to learn how to cook because she feels that it's a limitation for her. Not Nish, I'm not talking about you. But I'm just saying, right? And so how do you help that? Because she wants to establish herself. Because she wants to be the best she can for you. And that's one of the interesting thing about women is they really do wholly sacrifice. Well, when you meet the right person, they wholly sacrifice themselves for you and try to be the best they can be for you. And so, I don't even know how to explain it, man. It just took time to understand who Nish was or is and how to have this conversation and what does she like to hear, what doesn't she like to hear, what is her psyche. And if she's having a bad day, honestly, it's about giving her space, but reassuring, hey, listen, I'm here for you. Let me know when you want to talk. But then you have others who are, I just need you to talk to me and tell me, what do you think? And so, it's really confusing. It's very challenging. My personality is very different. And when I was talking to you guys the other day, I was basing it on the fact that who I am, and by nature I'm very receptive, adventurous. Not adventurous like climb Kenya, but in relationships and stuff like that. I for the longest time I thought I was introverted, but I guess I am extroverted.
Yeah, behind 3 cameras and
Yeah, and one of the, not to blow my own trumpet, was the ability to be receptive, open-minded, and accept. That actually helped me get through this relationship. Otherwise, this marriage would have ended 3 months in. If I had not been flexible enough, if I had not, and this is, like I said, stuff I'd learned when I was working and managing teams and people. It was, how do I manage her? And then it became, it's not about managing her. How do we live together forever? And do I want this forever? And yes, I do. So I'm willing to make sacrifices and stuff like that. But anyway, it's like a Lord of the Rings journey, right? I wouldn't say Game of Thrones. It's certain bits like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's good. At least Charlene's watched the first episode. I mean, the first installment of the Lord of the Rings. So
yeah, the first episode. Yeah, I mean, first part.
It's this adventure that comes along. It's, you meet so many new people, and by the end of this journey, God, you're a tight crew, and don't expect that in a relationship that within the first month, oh dang, we connected and this is it. I got tired of I didn't want to date, right? It's neither here nor there. And I was like, if I'm going to get into this, I'm going to get into it. And so my journey was to actually read her, understand her. What is she like? What isn't she like? I was terrible, and I'm still a terrible communicator, and it irks her. It pisses her off on another level. She goes, you don't talk. You don't tell me what's on your mind. I was like, dude, if I tell you what's on my mind, this ain't working, man. So I'm like, let me process this, right? And eventually with time, you figure it out. And so it's not always you as the man. It's also her, right? With time, she actually realizes what your thought process is, and she goes, all right, yeah. It didn't come from a bad place. Like I said, if you be genuine, you will attract genuine people, and they will accept who you are because they're willing to make those sacrifices to know more about you.
I think the basis of a successful relationship, what I'm hearing from you, is you need to first pick the right partner. And again, that's what gets attracted to you. If you're yourself, the right partner comes in.
I wouldn't say there is a right partner,
I
but
mean
a good fit.
A good fit, yeah. But I mean that in terms of like those core deep values. You see, there's 3 things that I think, like you mentioned, acceptance, flexibility. In as much as you have your value of acceptance and flexibility, the other person needs to have the same. Yes. Because at the end of the day, you're also human. You're going to consistently make different mistakes, 100%. Right? Your communication, you said initially, was horrible. Yep. Yet you are mindful. You're very mindful. It sounds like through your relationship, how you're taking business management and you're applying that in. It sounds so wrong. No, it does sound wrong. Okay, well, not. But it's values, it's skills, it's strategy. I feel like at the end of the day, life, the way you maneuver different things in life comes down to strategy. It is. And you're mindful about it. But again, like I said, if the other person is willing to be as flexible, as open-minded, as open-hearted, then that starts the right foundation for a good relationship.
So I will counter-argue that there always has to be a yin and a yang. And so a pothole here and there, where it's not an exact match, is a good thing.
From my experience, I see marriage as a wavelet. It's always evolving, right? It's always there's some static.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to the balance.
Right.
So I told Rajveer this, that sometimes my wife will tell me I'm feeling 20. I'll be, okay, today I'll give you the 80.
Yeah.
And I'll come home and I'll tell her, look, today I had a shitty day. I'm feeling 10. She'll be like, I'll shower you with love.
Yeah.
And we somehow work.
It's perfect.
And women are very emotional. Very, very, very emotional. And men really need to understand that sometimes you need to keep that in your mind.
Yeah.
So I use this tactic that I've learned in my meetings and stuff, that appreciation sandwich. Okay?
Interesting.
So
okay.
you tell her, hey love, I know you know that you're a great person, you're working hard, and maybe you made that mistake, but you should, sometimes pay more attention to the detail. But you know what? Nevertheless, your work looks great. I said something nice, told her what I had to say, and then brought the niceness back. So the appreciation sandwich kind of works.
I don't know. I feel like that would sound like bullshit sometimes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's how you put it.
Okay.
Oh, dang.
It's not sugarcoating it. It's not sugarcoating it. But
I think I need to learn from you.
But it works because you're not demeaning them.
Yeah.
And again, you're not enforcing that view that you had, that you should have done this. But now
Yeah.
it's more like, hey, no, I get you. You know you're evolving in your career and you're doing this. It's okay to make a mistake. But you know what? Nevertheless, the work looked great. But next time, pay more attention. So you're like
Yeah.
putting the approach in a sweeter way. They don't feel bad, but their mind kind of tweaks and be like, okay, it kind of makes sense. Next time I'll pay more attention.
I would kind of combine that with what he mentioned. Like, okay, so I would sandwich it like this, based on my learnings from you guys. Okay, so wow, that was amazing. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about doing it in this way, right? Or would you consider doing it in this way? Nevertheless, damn, what you did was amazing.
So mine came from the venting part, where you feel she did wrong. And so you have to you have to be very strategic. I'm not lying to you. I'm like, okay, I hope she doesn't watch this, but you have to be very, very strategic, because sometimes you come off as a very strong alpha.
Yeah.
And you have to sometimes take a step back, guard your ego, and be like, bruh, just chill and see the nice way to say
You know
it.
what? You came with the Burger King cheeseburger, and then he came with the Burger King XL, right? Right. It's interesting. I always tend to learn new things about personalities and in relationships, and that's very interesting that it works that way. By nature, I'm not aggressive, and so I don't like to actually tell people that they're wrong. I actually like to help them figure and discover, rather than tell them you should have done this. Being prescriptive versus figuring out on your own creates neural pathways which actually help them in the future, right? You don't create that dependency, and you don't rub egos or insecurities the wrong ways. But the fact that your wife actually, I wouldn't say falls for that, but
It's not all the time, but it's more of
but
like
I
a
like
guiding.
That's really a great piece of info, not rubbing friction. And I think even that just in of itself, not accusing someone and not telling them to do something in a specific way, you build the neural
prescriptive.
pathways.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I'm calling women children or wives children. It's one of the things I learned. As I have 2 kids. My son is 13 and my daughter's 10 now. That itself was a journey as well, and made many mistakes in my initial parenting times. Strict, don't do this, do that, fire hot, you're going to burn yourself. But there was a personality that I saw in him, which resonates kind of with how my wife thinks as well. And it was, fire is hot, but you want to experiment, go ahead, right? Now you burnt yourself, what did you learn from it? And it's actually helping them see that light. Trust me, the whole ability of critical analysis, critical thinking, you're actually developing and nurturing that. And it's just not one-sided, because there are perspectives that I never saw. And so she compliments me that way to help me see things from a very different perspective. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, if the sandwich...
It's like a guiding light. What you say, sometimes you have to just...
Yeah.
It's not 24/7,
No.
right? We it's more of pillow talk most of the time, right?
So well, I don't know what you talk on the pillow, but yeah, okay. That's how I got my 2 kids.
Yeah. But again, I'm sure that your wife works and you work. So sometimes, and now kids in the picture, you guys already have a very, I can say, very occupied day.
Oh,
on its
bro.
own.
I mean, even from the beginning is, I told Nisha, like, look, if you're okay with the lifestyle we're going to live, I'm happy to continue working for the rest of my life to make you happy, to try and make you as comfortable, but I can't give you what your dad gave you. And she was like, that's cool. That's fine. Eventually there was a day she came and said, hey, listen, I got a job and I'm going to move out. I mean, move into back into career. And I was like, your call. And she was like, all right. I was like, I got your back though. You want to work? Work. We didn't see each other. We came back and this is one of your questions about cranky day, tough day, terrible day. There is a thought that each of us have of how much we're sacrificing. And you will firmly believe that you're sacrificing 100% for this person. You're not getting 20, you're only getting 20% back. But imagine the other person as well. Your wife is thinking, dude, I've given this guy 150%. But all he said to me is, don't worry, your day will get better. And that's the best he can do. There's no 50-50 sacrifice. Someone will sacrifice a bit more. And like I said, don't count the pennies, right? It's that initial stage of our career where I was like, okay, you know what? Work is stressful. You're a successful woman in a male-dominated industry. You got pressures. You've got to deal with stupidity and corporate politics. And you're going to come home, and I'm not going to be that shoulder to cry on. One thing interesting about men is that some of us are emotionally constipated and we know how to keep it to ourselves. But how do you take advantage of that situation by saying, you know what, I'll talk to her another day, but let me listen to what she has to say, because they need to be heard. They have to be heard. It's not always about you. It's about them as well, because I think it's one of our gurus was telling us that marriage is two bodies, but creating a single light that shines your life. And so if that's what's going to happen, someone is going to be the wick and someone's going to be the fire. And another day, it's going to be the other way around. Someone gets burnt and someone burns. And so in career and in this whole thing, I decided that I think I should listen to what she has to say, because she's definitely having a tougher time. I've worked longer than her. And so I understand where she's coming from and understanding what sexism is in work as well. So initially that our career as with no kids was tough, but you had to listen to each other. And like I said, every day, how was your day? Was everything okay? Clearly, sometimes I missed it, but I'd get to hear it. But you would mark on your calendar, and like now we didn't have sessions where we'd sit down and say, so how do you think we're doing? It's about, where do you think we're going? What is our aspiration, where our goals are? Let's go have a chat over dinner, right? It's a date night. That is what made it special then, right? And so you have to have downtime, and you have to get away, and you have to get away from your in-laws and your parents. And it's just you've got to be selfish sometimes. And it's just about you two. Because at that moment, away on holiday, not in a work stress, home, cooking, food, whatever, but in an environment where you actually go and sit down and it's just you and nothing else to think about, it's a very different conversation you'll have. Very different conversation. And that relationship is not marriage. It's not husband and wife. It's, you're my best day. I know you got my back now. Because you have that candid conversation. Not that you forget it, but it goes and sits in your back of your mind, and you feel reassured and recharged until the next holiday.
How often did you detach from family, work, pressure, and all that?
You know what? It was difficult in the first 2 years. And then after the second year is when I realized I was actually not giving her enough attention. I was drowning myself in my work. And it took time to adjust, because I'd been working and work was all I knew. And that was my relationship. I didn't have friends over here. I didn't have any connections at all. I just didn't know anyone. And so she became a part of the family and my household, and I would see her every day. And so it took a lot of time to adjust to sharing a bed with someone, to getting used to that, and by the time it was just the two of us, I realized that something is straining. And I'm not the best communicator. I'm terrible at communicating. I normally cave up and just calm down, and I'm like, listen, I'm not talking to you for something. And so then we started doing this date night at least once a month, which was, I think, more than enough for both of us, because we also had our friendship circles. And one thing, my biggest advice is, as much as we want boys' night out, girls also need girls' night out. There's more to their social dynamics, and allow it. Don't judge, don't question, don't anything. You may not receive that. Like, where are you? I'm here. Oh, dude, it's only been 5 minutes. Yeah, where are you? I'm still here. You know what? Just check your WhatsApp. I'm sharing my location. It's live for the next 8 hours. You'll know where I am.
Yeah.
Trust me. But for women, give them that space. Trust them wholeheartedly. Don't doubt until, I don't know, man.
Shit happens.
Yeah, I always never doubt. It's one of the best ways to do it. Anyway, so once a month was great to have a downtime, to have a chat. Vacationing was once every 4 months, local, Naivasha, whatever it was. What my pocket allowed. And so, that was, she never camped.
No way.
I studied in the Himalayas, bro. Camping was like a weekend, every weekend thing, right? And so I loved it. The mountains, the ocean, sleeping in a tent, waking up, and you're like, oh, dang, dude, I miss my washroom, my blanket, my mattress, but this is cool. Look at that. Whoever sees a hippo outside your camp, pooping right there, freestyle. And so she came camping, and it was a big sacrifice for her. Big sacrifice, even though it was glamping at Carnelli's, right? I was like, you have running water, you have a shower,
Toilet.
right? Yeah, this ain't camping, man. Let's go to Old Pajara. I'll show you what long drops are and sleeping in the dust. But the fact that she made that much, I appreciate it. She did it for me. And then she continued doing it because she saw I enjoyed it. I loved it. So we started doing that as well. And every small moment like this built miles of, I would say, it just solidified the whole relationship and the respect. Because, like you said, you've got to be mindful of certain things. They don't say, look, I did this for you. The moment you meet someone who says, I did this for you, they're counting. But she never mentioned once, I sacrificed a dang good life to marry you. I am going camping to do this for you. She changed her lifestyle. And I respect that. And I appreciate her for that. I don't take advantage of it. I'm humbled. I learned from that itself. That's amazing. And so that's what it was like until we had our kids, or at least my first child. And then life changed. Women do a lot more for children than men do. We are a father figure or a role model for the child. But the mother instills principles and ethics in your child. You do your bit when you come back in the evening and you're tired, just chill, and you groom that in your child. But the mom actually does a lot more. And that's because it's genetics, it's evolution. What it is, the mother always has more attraction force to, or the kids are more connected to the moms. And so I clearly didn't do enough, but I did step in wherever I could, because when changing diapers and feeding and trying to feed them, get them to bed is a mentally tiring process, especially when she's working and I'm working as well. And I think I'm more tired than she is. I mean, I'm sure you've seen enough TikTok when women have colds, they're all on still working while their men, Mom, can you get me soup? I think I'm dying. and then there's your wife looking at you like, dude, you man up. You're like, all right, man.
No lie though, women can handle a lot.
Yeah, so
They're
they
really,
hack it, right?
Really resilient. Yeah.
That's the beauty about it. The fact that you're cognizant of that and you respect that, you feel involuntarily or voluntarily you want to give more to it. And so, I mean, there are times when I was like, hey, listen, 6 months now, baby's been clinging to you. Why don't you do this? Go out and see what your girls are doing and I'll take care of this. And so, once in a while you do that. Work is still there. It becomes a lot more stressful. I don't have a framework that we follow. We're very fluid. And the unfortunate thing is I'm reactive. So the moment I see tempers rising, I'm like, all right. I think this weekend, why don't we go and do this? Or more like she tells me, because I've stopped planning. I validate her opinions, right? I apparently do the wrong things. I was like, yo, you know what I'm missing? A good McFries. And she goes, that's date night? I'm like, all right, we'll go to Chapati. They go, really? I was like, all right, fine. We'll plan something. We'll go somewhere nice, but keep your evening free. And so those are the kind of things that make a difference, right? And that downtime. But yeah, enjoy these years of not having children. Make it a point to get out of town from all the noise and the bustle. Connect at intellectual, mental, spiritual level. We talk about spiritual stuff as well and stuff like that. And you get to know like what their belief systems is, right? I don't judge someone on religion and culture and all, because there are certain principles, there's certain ethics, certain belief systems that are instilled in them, and each individual translates it in their own way. It's for you to pick up on that. And for me, who enjoys these kind of discussions, is I try and pick up on that. And for me, that's an intellectual discussion, right? And for her, she's finance background, and like, yeah, stocks and this and that. And I'm like, I was like, just remind me, what is equity again? It's like, dude, do you even listen when I talk? I was like, yo, Holmes, it's so complicated. Like, let me explain IT to you. So yeah, we good that way. Cheers.
It all comes down to the value system.
Yeah, it does. It does come to the value system. It comes to so many things, man.
I wouldn't say there's a code of conduct, but there's certain core values that you'd always look for that balance you out. Sometimes, let's say if I'm an angry guy and she comes with a peace, somewhat, okay, and then again, marriage humbles you.
It does.
It really humbles you because you learn so much of each other.
Yeah. Look, I'll tell you one thing. You get into marriage and say, look, I'm entitled. I married you. So from now on, you're going to support me because I have emotional issues. I have mental issues in the sense that I bring a lot of baggage from work. I have stress that I've got a business to run, or I have stress that my bosses give me a tough time. Give me what my mom used to give me. Maru dikro or mera beta, tu theek hai? Your wife's not going to do that because she comes from a background where she got that. And so it's like you said, you got to be really mindful about relationships, about the other person. And if you think it's beneath you, it's not. It's you getting to learn who a person is. And it's not going to be only applicable on your wife. You will apply it when you have children. Because by the time you have children, you will see this little being evolve into a personality. And trust me, you are going to experience every personality characteristic, tantrum. Oh, it is a test of patience. I have no idea how my wife keeps her composure. And I guess it's the motherly thing. But for me, it's like, yeah, no, I mean, so like my son's now 13. And he told me a very hurtful thing once. And that was, I was struggling in my career. And I realized that it may be my age, it may be education, it might be something. And so I decided to do my MBA. So I was doing MBA and I was working full time. So I was putting in 18 hours for the last 3 years, 2.5 years. I was putting in 18 hours. And my boy came up to me and he goes, "Dad, I hate you." I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're either working or you're studying. What about us?" At that time, he was only 11. And I missed those 2 years. And what I missed was him becoming a man or him believing he was a man. And so he would tell me, he would talk back to me. And in our day, "Ati umeongea?" Right? But now I realize there's the education system, the exposure to digital media, they are learning the right and the wrong things at the same time. But with my boy he learns from experimenting. And there are those who learn from, this is wrong. Okay, this is wrong. I'm not going to do it. Fire hot, don't touch. My boy's fire's hot.
Touch.
Oh, dang, it is hot. So it's cool. That means he's a risk taker. He's inquisitive, he's innovative, he's adventurous. And he questions back. And it's not because he's defying me. It's because he's curious. It's just he doesn't know how to articulate it in a way that is acceptable, kind of, sugar-coated. Sandwich theory. And so, fortunately, it's not subway theory, right? That's going to be a long story. But, yeah, so I talked to him like a man. I was like, "Oh, yeah, what do you think? You want to do it? Go do it." But let me tell you, this is my disclaimer. Liability clause. I ain't responsible. But he learns that way. And so, so I didn't know about this until my wife told me about this. Because he's a man now. It's like, the bugger is only 11. He goes, "Oh no, he thinks he's a man. Treat him like one." And she had to tell me that. So she saw more than I did. And yeah, it's just very interesting. I've been humbled many times chatting with her and talking to her, and when she gives me advice. But there are times when she thinks she's wiser. And I do listen to her. I give her that opportunity to talk. But I do jump in and I say, in my opinion, I think instead of working it this way, I felt this may be a better opportunity. And what do you think about that? You think, now I've given you an option. You suggest, you decide which one you want to go on. There are times when they're wrong and you just sit back and keep quiet because you don't want to throw that "I told you so," because they're already dealing with that guilt and they're embarrassed, and embarrassment turns to anger. you don't want to poke that.
I was going to ask you how you deal with arguments.
Arguments, it's okay. There are various ways. I can react to it. If she gets angry, I can retaliate. Retaliation means because I'm trying to get defensive and I'm trying to defend an opinion. If it's my way or the highway, let's go see a counselor. Then you need someone to mediate this. But you're given an opportunity to be a better person. And do you have that patience and perseverance? Some people don't. I was humbled many times as I grew up, and I think it's part of me now, is to actually listen to what people say. And now I apply it with my wife as well. And is to actually listen to her. What pissed her off really? I can't justify or why I think I was right. There's no point. Shots will be fired and that's it, right? someone has to make a sacrifice. It's either her or it's you. In the whole alpha male scenario, I am always right. I know I was right. Don't talk to me like that. Or, go ahead. Tell me, what do you think? Let the steam blow out. Situation diffuses. Then you come and have a conversation when you're level-minded and present your opinion. Two things happen at that stage. They've vented, and now they're having. Women tend to reflect on the day's conversations, and sometimes they bring up stuff from like two decades ago, and you're like, dude, that was 2 decades ago. Forgive me, dude. I buy you chocolates and flowers, right? And so they have an opportunity to reflect on it, but it gives you an opportunity to reflect. You have a chance to go back and say, yo, ego, what's up? All right. So let me figure out how I will give her the sandwich answer, right? Either the cheeseburger or the Big Mac, whichever it is, right? But you get a chance to calm down and actually think with a level mind. And so what pisses Nish off is that I'm always smiling, I'm always laughing. I rarely get serious. I don't know. I don't think I've gotten angry.
You're a really good crisis management.
I don't know about that, right? I always say solutions are at the bottom of a white cap. No, I don't need to join Alcohol Anonymous.
Oh, it's here. The book is here.
But it's not, well, okay, crisis management. But it's actually, it's difficult for men to humble themselves, to control themselves, to take that ego, put it aside and actually listen. When you've been the boss for a very long time, you're not used to being quiet. Your opinion is your opinion, and that is it. But I challenge you. The next time there is an argument with anyone, even your wife or your workers, give them an opportunity to vent. Let them remove everything from that system. It's like a pressure cooker. Once the steam is out, then open it up. Then you are able to dissect what happened. But for you as well, you will keep a calm composure. Psychologically, that scares the person that's arguing at you. They're like, dude, you're not reacting. What's wrong? It's like, no, I'm giving an opportunity to talk. Once I've heard you completely, I will give you my opinion. And you tell me, does it resonate with what I think? Or does it resonate with what you think? Because by the time the whole conversation dies off and she's ready to get a billion and chapa you and make you into an aloo prantha or something, right? By the time all that is done, all that pent up pressure that is there is gone. And like I said, they will reflect. But the beauty about for men, which is really hard for us, is to nyamaza, sikia, and then digest. And now you say, now let's have a chat. Because in anger, in any relationship, what is said in anger is not generally true. It's in spite. Okay, sometimes it's true, but it's out of spite. Things that if you're in a normal mind frame, you have compartmentalized it. And it's not a major issue. You've compartmentalized it, but it comes out. And so you manage to control and put a rein on all that. And so you reacting in angry situations is just, especially in relationships, is let one or the other vent out. And yeah, sure, women can say what they want about this, but I think women have a tougher time to control that emotion. So you'd rather let them speak out, and then you come in and give it some time. It says, okay, you've said what you had to say.
But the biggest issue is male dominance in marriages.
Is that what you want to do, though?
No.
Do you want to dominate?
No, but I'm saying...
No, I'm not targeting you, but I'm just saying it's a question that I ask some of the guys who are the alphas. It's like, why do you want to dominate? What are you trying to establish? You are better than them? You know more than them? Or is it because that's all you knew? that you are the best and you will always be the best. One thing every scripture in the world will tell you is that there is always someone better than you. There are nuggets of knowledge and wisdom that are shared by others, but we don't listen because we think we're right. It is good to be right. It is good to believe you're right, but not to a point where it's egoistical, right? It gives you that confidence. But there are times when things escalate, then maybe you should just sit back and say, let me hear what they have to say, right? And there will be something in there which you may take and you'll be the wiser, or there may be something that doesn't make sense, but now you can give that advice. Because in that journey of that yelling and exchange of words being thrown at you, you actually, if you are consciously listening, you understand where they're coming from. And there is a perspective where they may have misunderstood something, right? And it's not for you to say you misunderstood this. It's how about from seeing it from this angle? Or how about let's try a different way of solving this problem? And that's how you diffuse a situation. And you've not come across as condescending. You've not put them down. You still maintain the alpha male because you get more respect. Because the more you do that, they will actually come to you for advice eventually. I go to my wife for advice. And there are times when she needs to talk to me. She doesn't ask me for advice. She just says, oh yeah, so I have this situation. I'm dealing it like this. I'm like, all right, cool. Sounds good. Then I give it some time. Then I go back. I'm like, so did when I was doing X, Y, Z, and then I actually did this, and this, and we solved it like so's. What do you think? Do you think it would work for you? Maybe. It's the best you get. That is the best you'll get. But imagine you've solved a problem for her. So it's.
And you subconsciously build respect.
Yeah, you continue doing that.
I think even when you mentioned like when someone's actually reacting and you're sitting still and listening to them, you said that there's that feeling in them that this guy's not reacting.
Yeah,
that does build a subconscious level of respect for yourself. The person starts respecting you because they're like, okay, this guy's really calm and collected.
No, so you will come across narcissistic people and narcissistic women as well. And they enjoy watching these reactions. To not give them that satisfaction is just to keep calm. I mean, they think you're a dullard or you're not understanding what they're saying. You are the wiser for being like that. Right?
You spoke about spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take time just for yourself?
Yeah, so Nish started meditating for mental health, for calming herself down, for having to deal with 3 children. And the 3s, I am considered a child as well. And so she started meditating. I would like to meditate, but I don't think I'm getting there yet. I am fearful that I will discover things that I don't want to discover yet, or whatever it is. Life is going okay right now. But time to myself, yes. Like I said, I believe I'm an introvert. People say I'm an extrovert. I say I'm an extroverted introvert, right? There are moments when I do need my alone time, and Nish recognizes that. And she knows that, okay, on Saturday, the guy goes for Muay Thai, goes for boxing, 3 hours he's spent. And that Saturday afternoon, he just doesn't want anyone around him. She gives him a space, and she goes, sees her friends. Kids are doing their own thing. Either they've gone to their nanny's house, the grandmother's house, or whatever it is. And it's D&D, do not disturb. And it's not me putting up that sign. She has learned that about me. And so, and during those moments is when, I get to reflect and think about stuff and actually truly synthesize or digest how the day has been. And I reflect on the relationship more than I do on work. Work can come and go. Relationship is something precious. And I believe you can make it work if you put that effort, put that ego aside and all that, and if you genuinely want to make it work, it will work, right? So those moments of me sitting alone for 4 or 5 hours is sufficient enough for me to actually process what happened through the week. And just, there are moments men tend to zone out when, and you're like, yeah.
I think just say that for the listeners who are speaking.
Oh, right. When it's fire and brimstone being raining on you from your bitter half at that time, not better, bitter half, we just zone out, right? It's because we're tired. And we don't want to, we just can't argue with it. You're like, you know what, just give it to me. I am a baboon. I have no idea. Bring it on. You're listening, but you're not really listening. It's that moment of my 5 hours, and I'm like, oh crap, she actually said that, right? and so you're like, oh, okay. But you take it and you say, you know what? Next week I'm going to make sure I'm going to resolve this problem. I managed to do it maybe in 2 months. but it happens, right? And so it is really important. Like I said, you got to give each other the space. And like I encourage Nish to go and meet her friends, right? I don't know. She never did initially, or she didn't do it much initially. And then I was like, dude, I'm meeting my boys. It's a boys' night out. I have no issues with you go meeting your girls. Go for it. Do it. You need downtime. You haven't met your friends. We're married. And so just to tell them, give them that confidence. Don't say I trust you. Oh, don't throw in those words. And they're like, excuse me? You said you trust me. What do you mean? Yeah, don't.
And then
You are smart.
I try. I've learned my lessons.
Yeah, so just encourage them to also meet their friends. Encourage, not push. They'll be like, why are you trying to get me out of the house? You're like, no, it's okay. You can't win.
yeah.
It can go either way. It's just smart play.
Why do you think that relationships these days, marriages, they're just ending left, right, center?
That's a tough one.
Especially in our generation.
Yeah. What advice would you give people to save their relationships?
Is the relationship worth saving?
I generally think
I mean,
a lot of
time,
relationships
yeah.
are
Yeah.
worth saving.
So I'm 47 now, and a lot of the kids that I've met who are having difficult relationships, it tends to be really superficial, eh? There's an initial attraction. There is this right person. There is things are working. He made me laugh. She made me laugh. I think there is a synergy. And I actually question myself, if I dated Nish for a year and then moved in and just the two of us lived together for a year, would we have gotten married? I don't know the answer. I really don't. Because I had an option to get out. And if that year we had teething issues and I said this relationship isn't worth it, we wouldn't have stuck to it, right? And so relationships can become a hit and run situation because you have options, because there is a way out. And it's becoming a norm that there is a way out. Now, let's think about our grandparents and our parents when arranged marriages, first time you meet someone, and it's drilled into you that it's got to work. Culture, society are going to shun you and they're going to say bad things. It's about our reputation. So there was a compulsion to make it work. Today's generation, and more are becoming aware that there are choices. And society is slowly starting to get used to it. I don't think it's a bad thing. You don't want to end up in a toxic relationship. But yeah, my personal opinion is that a relationship that turns into marriage, even though you get to know each other for a year, is really has scratched the surface, and you really don't get to know this person. You want to get to know someone? Get away. Honestly, get away for 5 days lock yourselves up. Oh, well,
Well, lock yourselves
no,
up.
not
man,
lock
bro.
it. Yeah, no, just go find a small beach villa or whatever you prefer. Sit in the mountains, but just you two. No TV, no distractions. Try and have that conversation for 5 days. If you resonate, right, that relationship is going to work. But after 2 days, you're like, dude, we have nothing to talk about. All right. I'm bored? Yeah. Should we just go back? And then you'll realize that, okay, if silence is awkward, that wasn't a good relationship. But if silence was, and you're just staring into space, but you are having a conversation without speaking, that is a relationship. So failure to relationships, superficial, you didn't get to know the person, scratching the surface, you live together, and that's your personal dynamics, right? Are you willing to get to know someone? Really get to know someone. The depth of an individual is, this is going to be very cliche, it's like a tapestry, right? Many strings, many colors. If you're only yanking on red and yellow, right, that's all you got to know. But you don't see the bigger picture of who they are. What if you're curious about a human being, you want to know everything that makes them tick. It's not about a short burst of dopamine and I flip to the next TikTok video, right? A relationship is not TikTok. It's a commitment. The question is, are you willing to make the commitment? Because there will be sacrifices. There will be moments when you will pull your hair out. There are moments when you say, I feel worthless. This person makes me feel worthless. Is it worth living? And I've come across friends like that as well, who said, I don't think I want to live anymore. And those are relationships which are really toxic. I get out of it, right? You don't want to be in that. But how long did you actually get to, or when did you take that time to get to know that person? Some people are really good. Instinctually, they already know I've connected with this person. And it's a genuine connection, right? And I asked them, how did you know that? We had a conversation. What conversation did you have? What did you talk about? Oh, I like a Hummer. Oh, so do I. Oh, I like to go to Inti. Oh, so do I. Yeah, I like NSK on Thursday nights. Oh, dang, she's the one. That was the conversation.
That's extremely superficial.
Yeah. But when you sit down and say, so let's have an intellectual discussion, right? Talk about economics and politics and laugh over here and laugh over there. And then you get into principles. These are my principles. I believe I will follow the 7 rights that we have in our Guru Granth Sahib, or whatever it is, our 7 principles. This is my ethics. This is my personality. When you see that person yawning as you speak that, or they're trying to change the subject, and this is important to you, it may not work, or maybe just going to take them time to figure you out.
But
right?
all relationships are a work in progress. If you really want them to prosper,
Yeah, no, but you
have to bite the bullet sometimes.
But when I mentioned at the start,
Yeah.
That's exactly it. People find the wrong people, get into these relationships, get married, but you've not even had that conversation on,
for
what
the
was your
wrong reason.
upbringing like? What makes you tick?
Yeah. So that's why I was very blunt with her. Like I said, I earn $500 a month. I live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my parents and my sister. I don't go out because I can't afford to. I don't own a car, and I don't go on holidays. I give my entire salary to my parents because they're running the house, and I really don't need the money. That is me. She's like, yeah, cool. Let me know if you want me to be part of that family. And I was like, are you for sure? I was like, are you saying it just to say it because it's the right thing to say? This is not Bollywood. Because I was like, don't tell me my love would be nurtured by your love. I was like, yeah, okay. Is that what you're looking at? And she was like, no, She goes, let's build a life together. And goes, we'll see. I have confidence and faith in you. And I was like, the moment she said that, I was like, very few people actually have told me that I have the confidence in you. And I was like, dang, girl, all right, let's do this then. Right? And so it happened. And so it's that meaningful discussion. It is, I believe it's the strongest foundation to an ever-evolving marriage.
And coming down to being your true self.
Yeah. Be genuine. Be who you are. You want someone to like you for who you are, not what I am at Gondwana or at NSK, right? You've got to be you, and you will attract like-minded people or people who appreciate that, right? It takes longer. I got married at 33, and I didn't intend to get married, but this happened, and like I said, we had really interesting conversations, and I was like, wow, we resonate, very interesting. I don't talk much about spirituality, but now I've started vocalizing a lot, because back then it wasn't the cool thing to do, right? But when I feel comfortable with someone, I open up and I talk about it. And if they're not like cringing or squirming around, I'm like, okay, cool, I can have this conversation. Because that's what you want to do as you get older together. You can have these conversations, and things keep changing, and yes, it evolves. There will be new dynamics every time, and trust me, after you have kids, whoa,
No, life changes for sure.
Mindset changes. Even as a couple, your personality starts changing. You actually start changing for your kids. You become a different person, and you get to learn each other all over again. And it's very cool,
A new book on its own.
Yeah, a new book on its own. There's no chapters. It's always a whole new book. A whole new book. What you were when you were in school, I think you get married. It's like several volumes that come along all along your journey. And that's what it is, right? And you never know. It could be a trilogy, or it could be, I know you guys are very young, the Encarta encyclopedia from A to Z, right?
Yeah, that was too much.
Yeah, so, it's a wonderful journey. Relationships.
Said, are you ready to get married?
I am ready to get married. I think also like a very important thing is, how you said, it's a very beautiful journey.
Yeah.
A lot of men say it the other way around. Oh my God, don't get married. It's the worst thing. I think when you get married as that as your foundation, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
But also having the conversation saying that it's also not easy. Just the way you said, you got to put in the work.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Men are not, with our generation, they're not patient. They're not ready to put in the work. And it's more like, it's all about me, not about you.
So I have a question, right? When a young entrepreneur starts his business, why do they put their all in starting that business or venturing out and creating their content? Why do you do it?
To make it work.
It's a passion, right? In a relationship, the passion will come later. But when you start off with the right mindset, like you said, that I will like to get married and I want to make a relationship work, the passion comes in and it grows and it gets better. And passion does get better as you go older.
See the smile on your face.
and so you've got to put in the work. Nothing comes easy, right? You will meet your obstacles. There will be a pothole. There will be a speed bump. There will be a Mount Kenya, and there will be the gorge, right? You will have to figure out to traverse that. And it's really your call. If you are committed to it and your true mettle is tested, then as a man in a male-dominated, a world where men were always the alpha, women didn't know anything, and they have to be subservient to you, your generation is going to face very different challenges. Because the whole equality thing is coming. But it's not about equality, it's equity. What are you going to give them? Right? And what are they going to give you? And so, take it in stride. And enjoy the journey.
Is there any last bit of advice you'd like to give couples on their journey?
You've hung out with us young chaps, so you know how to.
No, I mean, it's been a pleasure. And I think from the sounds of it, you have a great relationship and you're on the right path of finding a good partner. Be genuine, be true to yourself. Always maintain trust and give and at least vocalize that you trust whoever, trust them. Communicate. And accept the fact that not only you are giving 100%, but the other person is giving 100% as well. And yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you so much for coming out to the show and sharing with us this beautiful information, man.
I am definitely elevated. There's some things that I've learned I'm definitely practicing.
No, thank you. It was a big surprise when you told me let's have a series. I didn't expect this, but this being a first. But thank you for this experience, and it's really my pleasure to have actually had a chat with the younger generation. I think you guys are almost a decade plus younger than I am. And it's 3 decades. 3 decades. Fair enough. I accept that. But you've come into a world where relationships are very different, a lot more fluid, a lot more open, and it's going to be a very interesting experience. You're going to have, just enjoy the ride. There's this one parting thing is that, in a river, trees are broken or they bend over, rocks get molded and shaped into a certain way as a pebble. But in a river, a reed bends over no matter how hard that current is and is not blown away. So learn to be flexible, because when the torrent goes away, you will come back standing up again. And that's how relationships, one of you is going to be the root and one of you is going to be the stem. And that's how it's going to work out, right? So that's what you got to understand.
And with that, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode of the Men's Forum.
If you have any questions regarding this episode, please comment below.
And if there's any other topics that you'd like for us to discuss in future podcasts, also let us know down in the comments below.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Peace.